Good evening, everyone, to the Waterbury Connecticut Board of Education's regular meeting for Thursday, April 15, 2021. Tonight's meeting, we will start off with a silent prayer. Doctor, do you have any comments that you want to say at this point?
Yes, Commissioner. In our moment of silence this evening, let us remember former members of our Waterbury Public Schools education community who have passed away. Jane Healy, former teacher at various elementary schools in Waterbury, passed away on March 16th. Stella Conderas, former secretary with Waterbury Public Schools, passed away on March 19th. Rosalind Galtieri, retired health aide at Kennedy High School, passed away on March 26th. Robert Fusco, Sr., retired Mason for Waterbury Public Schools, passed away on March 30th. Let us remember them and recognize them for their service, dedication, and passion to both the students of Waterbury and the people that they cared for and who care for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Orso, would you please pretend you're at Fenway Park and please recite the Pledge of Allegiance for us tonight, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Play ball. Ms. Swain, would you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Brown? Here. Vice President Harvey?
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Here.
Commissioner Nardozzi?
Here.
Commissioner Orso?
Here.
Commissioner Serrano Adorno? I thought I seen her come on.
I don't see her up there yet, but she said she may be joining us via audio only.
Okay. Commissioner Stango?
Here.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Here.
Commissioner Van Stone?
Present.
President Pagano?
Present. I'd also like to welcome our two student representatives, Fatima Ali, is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Okay, welcome. And Ashley Colegio Kale, both welcome, both from Waterbury Career Academy.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being here tonight. First order of business is agenda item number 4 for communications. Commissioner Ann Sweeney, would you do the honors?
Motion to receive and place on file communications as listed.
Second.
Any discussion? Thoughts? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. We move on to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 5, public address to the board. I believe there is no callers on the line.
Correct.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next one. Item number 6, Superintendents Announcements. Dr. Ruffin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner. And very shortly, Matt Brown and the rest of the team members who are presenting tonight will share. But first, I wanted to share with the board, you will eventually meet after April 26th. Mr. Miguel Pabon, who was selected as our Director of Pupil Services, his first day of employment with Waterbury will be April 26th. And then to welcome Ms. Tamisha Brown, who has had her first day today as the school and community engagement manager. She began today at the Welcome Center. So we want to welcome these two staff members. Also, we have hired Mr. Daniel Berry, who will be serving as our school safety coordinator, and his first day will be on April 22nd. And during that time, when he does come in, there will be staff members who will welcome him. He will begin, learning more about the district and introducing himself to others when we resume school after spring break the following week. So we'd like to welcome these 3 employees. You will have an opportunity to meet them. We'll have them in May to be on our virtual meeting, and you will have an opportunity to welcome them, and perhaps they will choose to say a few words to you as well, and answer any questions you may have. Tonight is a big night for us, and we've been working very diligently. My staff has worked really hard on the ESSER 2, making certain that we did this work collectively with our community and community stakeholders, hearing the voice of students and staff, our teachers, hearing the voice of parents, hearing the voice of our principal administrators, and making certain that we helped in line with the board's strategic plan, as well as making certain that what we said we were going to do and how we were going to write this application, this grant proposal. Actually, it's an application that has to be submitted to the State Department. And Matt, you could start by sharing your screen while I just give this introduction. But several members of the team, either chaired or co-chaired various committees that assisted in hearing very important details about what we need to do and how we need to utilize these funds to be able to move our district forward in the next several years. Understanding that this is not final. This is what we're submitting, with the understanding that as additional funds are going to be released into the district, there's going to be a tremendous amount of rewrite and flexibility in how we're going to utilize those funds to make certain that we have a return on our investment. So what we're sharing with you tonight is what we're going to be submitting in eGrant as we were asked to by the state prior to April 19th. But there are going to be several other pieces that will come out of this next release of funding that's called AARP funding, that we have not yet received an award allocation at this time, but we do believe it's going to be significant, and that we are going to go back to the drawing board in ESSER 2, as well as other funding sources that we have in the district, to make certain that what we are saying we're going to do, that we're going to be doing it well, that we're going to be able to see how it impacts the district over multiple years, and that we're going to see an investment on our return, as well as we're going to make certain that we address all of the critical areas that we know we're desperately in need of addressing. Student supports, academic supports, the technological world that we are going to remain in for the duration, family and community engagement. We certainly want to be fiscally responsible, and we want to address the social and emotional needs of our students as well as our staff. So you're going to see that embedded in this application that you will see tonight, but you will also see it as we continue to develop and evolve when additional funds are released to the district. And so Matt Brown, our Chief Turnaround Officer, will present, and with Doreen Biolo will be sharing tonight and tag teaming on what we have thus far, and we will all be available to answer questions that you have after. Matt.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Good evening, President Pagano, Vice President Harvey, commissioners, all assembled. Thank you for that introduction, Dr. Ruffin. Yes, so the ESSER 2 grant went through a very involved process to try and do all the things Dr. Ruffin spoke about, and we'll get into that. But first, Doreen's going to just talk for a minute about sort of how this relates, how these various grants that you're hearing about relate to each other. So hopefully, can everyone see the screen?
Yep. Great.
All right, Doreen, why don't you take this slide?
Thank you, Matt. As you know, we've been hearing a lot about the ESSER 2. We've had ESSER 1. We have the ARP money, possibly ESSER 3 that it will be called. And so all these different pockets of money, ESSER, all CARES Act money. And what does the ESSER acronym? It's the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. Prior to ESSER 1, I just do want to cover, we did receive a coronavirus relief fund of $3.6 million. That grant did end December 30th of 2020. That is fully expended, and that was on a lot of PPE. It was to hire some temporary maintainers at the time. So that is all expended. And we currently have ESSER 1 that we've already been awarded. That's at $9.4 million. $8.4 million was on the public portion side. We also had to have the equitable service piece for our non-public, which was close to $1 million. A lot of that was preventing, preparing for, and responding to COVID-19. So again, it was a lot of PPE, a lot of technical equipment, support, and we're still expending that. We were able to even shift some funding from the PPE to CRF because we had to spend that money by December. So that is a lot of technology and PPE. ESSER 2, as Dr. Ruffin and Matt had pointed out, we are in the application process. The award on that is $41 million, and it's in 5 categories. One being academic support and learning acceleration and learning loss. 2, family community connection. 3, school safety and social emotional learning. Category 4 is remote learning, staff development, and the digital divide. And other, they pretty much added on a little bit. It wasn't in the very beginning, and then they added on this other category. The state did, and that included a lot of like capital projects to address the importance of the air quality, helping with the food service loss, et cetera. So that's the other section. We're hearing a lot about this American Rescue Plan. Again, we have not been awarded any allocation at this point. What we hear is that it probably will be more than the ESSER 2 allocation. So we do know that 20% of that has to be spent on learning loss. Let me just tell you when the grants end. So ESSER 1, that grant will end in September of 2022. The ESSER 2 grant will end in September of 2023. And from what we know through the state, I believe possibly the ESSER 3 or the American Rescue Plan Act will end in September of 2024.
Thank you, Doreen. So as Dr. Ruffin spoke about the process we have gone through with ESSER 2, which is the $41 million, to try and make sure that we are both recommitting to that work that was in the strategic plan that so many members of the community combined on right before the start of the pandemic, while also reimagining, which means thinking through what are the things that we now know we need that perhaps we weren't as clear to us prior to COVID. Obviously, you see the Portrait of the Graduate work is there, integrating the work of the Portrait of the Graduate and the strategic plan with the new funds coming from ESSER in a way that strategic and planful has been the core of the work that we've been doing. And so we have 5 different parts of our strategic plan, as we know, which are the postgraduate success, teaching and learning, family and community engagement, talent management, and then talent development, and fiscal responsibility. Our job was to have those groups reconvene. We reached out to parents, to families, to students, to teachers, to try to get as much feedback as we could about how people felt things were going during the pandemic regarding those areas, what they were learning about what they needed from the district to try to access as much material and teaching and learning as they could, and what they thought should happen as we hopefully all come out the other side of this. And then we matched that into the 4 priority areas that you heard Doreen speak about. We sent out surveys that were qualitative, not quantitative. They were 6, 7, sometimes 8 questions. People had to answer them all. When we added up all the responses, we had over 6,000 different responses of data points to get from several hundred parents, teachers, and students combined. And these are just a couple that are representative of what people said when we asked them questions about what are you learning from the pandemic? What are things we need to be thinking about? And folks, as you can imagine, represented a wide range of thoughts. But here, and we'll see in each of the priorities we go through, here are just a couple that kind of represent a lot of what was out there. Students who are really excited to get back with their peers, but are really nervous about getting back into school in person. Staff who really want to do a good job, but need more planning time still in the summer and after school to kind of figure out how to make all this technology stuff work for them. And so in priority area 1, we've got several different things that are happening, initiatives to push this work forward. The Portrait of the Graduate, one of the biggest pieces that the state has asked for is how are we measuring learning loss? How are we going to measure as we catch people up? How are we going to make sure that we lead forward into this post-pandemic era, knowing what students didn't get and knowing what they did get and how to build on that? And our kind of doubling down here is on the Portrait of the Graduate as the way in which our assessment system should be developing. So we have quite a bit of money working with other organizations that are going to help us develop that so that we can, knowing that the state standardized assessments are not going to give us all the information we need now, especially since a lot of students are unable to or are not taking them. How do we leverage the work that we're already doing on the Portrait of the Graduate to give us that information? Accelerating learning in class, in schools, as students get in there, increasing our career and technical education and dual enrollment to entice students to come back to school with coursework that excites them and feels relevant and rigorous, and also a real wide range of summer learning opportunities. All of these things are in this plan, both based on the feedback and the needs assessment and from what we feel like capacity-wise we can move forward. You can see the estimated funding amount. These estimated funding amounts are really fungible because, as we know, we have a whole separate set of funding that's going to be coming where we have some places that we know will be adding some more pieces. And also the state has been very encouraging to all districts to know that these allocations can shift and change as we open our schools fully back up to full-time education, as we do more things in the summer and see some work that we need. Priority 2, family and community connections. You hear there was a lot of response from parents who were just really excited about kids coming back into school if they weren't in school yet, or excited about what their children had learned, while also recognizing they needed help and how to take advantage of these technological pieces like Google Classroom and other things that they knew if they knew more about, they could support their child's and students' learning. One of the things that we saw with this one is many of the initiatives that come through for here are actually paid for already of their other entitlement grants. We need to expand training. A lot of parents said, please keep teaching me how to use Google Classroom and Pear Deck and the other technology that my student is learning, which we don't see going away even when students are in person. How do we continue to strengthen our communication and build our capacity there and connection with the communities? And we know that ESSER 3, the Recovery Act, is going to have a lot of money that's going to most likely be used strategically to really bolster this up. So that's why that's got an asterisk there, knowing that we have a lot of entitlement funds that are paying for that, but we also have a lot of funding that's coming in as well. Priority 3, school safety and social emotional well-being. And this is really important to say of the whole student and our school staff. A lot of information coming from students and families and teachers about this, about how do we make sure that our schools are receiving our students both virtually and in person in a way that helps them feel comfortable, feel safe, helps them make sense of what they've been living through the last year, will make sense of what they're living through now and what's to come. We felt this quote is really responsive to that, as students saying, we really need to talk about a lot of things. We need to talk about our lives. We need to have a lot and not just our academics. So there is a lot in this. We are increasing the numbers of school counselors to ensure capacity in every school. SEL curriculum and training at all levels for all teachers, both training teachers and providing curricular. Student success plans for all students, linking back to Naviance and other technologies that we have to make sure we're individually, to make sure that we're individually supporting the personalized needs for every student. And then a lot of conversation around doing work around cultural competency and ongoing equity work, which is already happening in Waterbury, but we know needs to continue to happen to make sure that all of our students are feeling served and safe in our schools. And the final priority listed was remote learning, staff development, and the digital divide. We know that we did an enormous amount getting technology out to students, and we need to continue to do work to get that back, to repair it, to refurbish it, and get it back out to them. But we also have some students who said, it didn't work very well for me for a variety of reasons. We're trying to help that happen by continuing to get our inventory of tech up and continue to build our infrastructure. And then we had some students who said, it did work for me. How do you make this continue for me, either in terms of trying to continue some form of virtual or some form of the things that worked for folks in virtual in the in-person? So we're continuing to look at device inventory, look at support for teachers and families to leverage that new technology. That amount, just to note, I'm sure Doreen can talk about that, is a little bit smaller than, is a little bit misleading because there's quite a few, several $1 million of that getting spent off of ESSER 1, as well as which we're still spending down. So the final category that the state said is spending it on other operations, and that's where you see this big ticket number. I'm going to let Doreen talk about that a little bit more. She referred to it in the initial slide, but there's a little bit more detail here.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, so you can see this other category more in the operations side. And one of the things too I want to point out is I believe the state, they recognized the fact that you know, we're being flat funded in other funding sources in other areas. So basically they'd want us to leverage some of this ESSER funding so we can retain some of our staff. So I just wanted to point that out as well, because you know, we have, as you know, we had a budget gap still of 1.9 million. So we were able to move some of the staff that we currently have in the general fund and move it into the ESSER fund so we can retain staff. So that was an allowable expense. And so we're going to do that just to balance off some of our budget gap. But here in our operation, we have 30,300,000 as an estimated funding amount. And again, any of this can be adjusted and changed when we know what our ESSER 3 funding will be and what we can use all that on. But getting money at this one-time big pot and knowing, you know, we will never have funding like this to be able to do the things that we need to do in our operation facilities. So about 28.5 million of that is strictly on facilities. There's going to be a facility study done. So have somebody come in and assess about all of our buildings, you know, what can be done in our buildings, what repairs can be done, what should be done, what shouldn't be done, so on and so forth. So we have about money set aside for that. We have a large amount set aside based on what the study will show us to improve air quality and ventilation and upgrades for air conditioning and so on and so forth. So there's a big chunk for ventilation, HVAC. We also have in here for facilities upgrades to our auditoriums. So to our major complexes, the Bergen complex, which houses Crosby Wallace, the Laurel Hill complex for Wilby and North End, as well as Kennedy High School, Westside Middle School, Rotella Magnet, and also the Waterbury Arts Magnet School. So those where we have the larger auditoriums. We also have in here helping the food service department become whole, and it was another allowable expense the state has recognized. Obviously the loss of revenue over the past year for that department based on loss of revenue, but yet supplying food to all of our students, families, and keeping staff afloat. So we were able to use this area to help make that whole. And we also can have, we're looking at something what's put aside in here for a little bit of summer, not knowing, I know there's major meeting today and there's been a lot of plans Dr. Ruffin has been working on with her other staff members on what summer could look like. So we have some money set aside in this other category as well. And also to retain some of the staff. So we have some of our custodial and tradesmen in this category as well. And we have some funding set aside in this also for administrative costs, because once we are awarded this money and we have to get time to like absorb all this, and we need to have a good staffing. I don't know, maybe like a lead that we can make sure that we get all these projects in line and moving, because it's a lot of money. And yes, when you say, oh, we have till 2023 or we have till 2024, that's going to come quick. And this is a large amount of money with a lot, you know, a lot of red tape is in some of this when we have to do a lot of facility projects. So that's allowable to have some administrative costs in this as well. So that's kind of the other category. Again, 30.3 million, and 28 point of that is really strictly in the facilities.
So just to review, this is an ongoing process. As we've said several times, we're waiting on ESSER 3, the ARPA, which is supposedly even a much bigger amount potentially. We're continuing to learn from our families, students, and staff about what they need and trying to, again, build that into our strategic plan so we're deliberate about it. We can make revisions and are encouraged to do so. And then, of course, we're committed to the same deliberate process with this grant as we were with the strategic plan, which is staying focused on the portrait of the graduate and the long-term results we want to see for all of our students, and paying particular attention to that word all, how we leverage these grants to make sure our students with special educational needs, with English language learners, and the whole range of students that Waterbury Public Schools serve get to those outcomes of the portrait of the graduate and have these strong performance that we expect. So that's an overview for you. We're happy to take any questions. Many members of the committees, of course, who oversaw these are on this call as well. So some folks may be better poised to answer than others as we go through, but thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I see Commissioner Tom Van Stones was the first one I saw raised.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. That was a great overview. I really appreciate it. I knew everything around and about with these grants, but this overview really informed us quite well. So I really appreciate it. The one I want to spike out though a little bit is and it's one that was on my mind as soon as I saw it on the agenda, and that is the facilities, because we could social distance and put on masks all we want, but the ventilation is really going to, and the HVAC is going to really be the difference maker. So I'm really glad that we're looking at that. The only question I do have on that, everything here was just a comment, and you guys are doing a great job. Facilities, making sure we have equipment in the hands of the students so they can be on virtual learning. Everyone's done a great job through this really difficult time. So I really, Dr. Ruffin, I really appreciate you and your staff for getting us almost through this, but we certainly got to this point doing very well. So when it comes to the facilities, we did a facility survey not that long ago. I want to say 5, maybe 6 years ago, might even be less. So I'm just wondering where that survey is today, and will it be helpful? And maybe we don't have to pay for a complete survey. They can expand on the one we had, but it has not been that long since we had a facility survey done. So I'm just wondering where that might be.
Yes, I'd like to start, and then Will Clark can finish on that. There was a facility study, and I think that we still use it as a guiding, but the facility study was not a thorough facility study that went through every single facility and gave priorities to what needed to be changed, what needed to be totally replaced, the life cycle. And it did not really give a thorough, like, what's your top priority and what you should do if you're going to be able to maintain that building for any longevity at all. And so it was a very useful survey and facility study. We need something so in-depth that's going to help us to not only just tell us that the building is old, but rather, if you don't spend some money on this building, you won't be able to use it in the next couple of years. And here are your top priorities, and this is what it potentially is going to cost you. And so we can have a total plan for multiple years to deliver best practices to the district. Additionally, it may have given us, and I think it did, some enrollment projections for 10-year projection, but we also have created lots of programs and academic programs and specialized programs within our school system. And I think we really need to know where to strategically place them for the continued development of our school system. Sometimes today, when we need space at a school, we move a program to another school, but that's really not very effective. We do it because we need the space, but that's not really the best practice when you want to provide some equity and equitable services to all children, because people don't feel comfortable when you're moving them out to move somebody in. And then the other piece of that, before we'll elaborate on that, is the board has frequently spoken about loving the pre-K-8 model. And so, and if that's the board's intention, I think that we need to take a look at that and what is that going to take to make that happen in Waterbury? And I think a facility study can help the board make that decision about what you want to do with it. Once you have all that information laid out very clearly to you, then you can decide what do you want to do.
Okay, thank you. And you're right. That is what we look at doing. Going that K-8 model. Certainly, I don't think our infrastructure supports it right now, and we'll see how we go with things like window cross projects going forward. But that helped me a lot on what the study gave us the last time. So thank you.
Yeah, if I may, I'll just echo everything that Dr. Ruffin said, and your history is correct. It was 2015, so about that 5 or 6 years ago. But it wasn't really a complete, as Dr. Ruffin said, study on all things, but it also, the enrollment projections were out to 23, 24. So, we're essentially there already. B, there's been a lot of changes, particularly demographically and student need-wise, across that time span. And number 3 on that, we, with this money, as Doreen correctly pointed out, this is essentially a generational investment. So what we want to do is get that enrollment study pushed out. We actually did a little update on it with Malone and McBroom, as you recall, with the Window Cross project, because we had to do that when you submit a new construction project. So, we have these pieces that will all flow into, hopefully, with the winning vendor. The RFP is already out for this, but it wants to be comprehensive for all the things Dr. Ruffin said, also to push that enrollment out for the period of time and beyond where this funding will be. So we really have a good focus on it. And to all of Matt's points, to link this to the strategic plan and to this board's goals and this community's goals. So it's not just a piece of paper, a square foot, X and Y and Z. It's how does this, to Dr. Ruffin's point that she made, how does these facilities, this infrastructure best fit the goals and strategies of this district today, tomorrow, 5 years, 10 years down the road? It may be that we've got too much and we need to shrink. I think is to your comments, Commissioner Bridgestone, I don't think that's the case. We don't probably have the right match of infrastructure for the goals and programs we want and need. So could it be a repurposing? Could it be we need different buildings? All those different things. So we're asking in the RFP for that full assessment, for some options, for specific community engagement, just as Matt described, to take this successful model that we've been using for the strategic plan for portraiture graduate for this piece, for that study as well. So it's not just some sort of scientific thing, drop it on us, put it on a shelf and walk away. A very interactive, we hope, process that we can feed all that other information, feed a lot of the anecdotal information that's in the head of our vendors, in the head of our staff members, and translate that history essentially into action, and then take advantage of technology, new building, energy efficiency. To Doreen's point about the auditoriums, just switching over the stage lights that cost $200-300 a pop in some cases to replace to LED lights, increase functionality, decrease your cost, et cetera, et cetera. So there's lots of opportunity. We want to align that opportunity with the goals of the district, leverage the resources appropriately, and also think about the back end. School construction money from the state of Connecticut, essentially, you get a bunch of money, you build a school, they walk away. And then you're kind of left with it. We've seen the results of that, 20, 30, 50, and in some cases of our buildings, 100 years later. So we want to have that plan built in as well. How do you, whatever we want to do with the plan says, how do you then maintain that? What are the systems you need in place? What are the supports you need in place? What's the staffing models you need in place? And we think all of that can align very nicely with the strategic plan, with the ESSER 2, and leading into and help us decide as a community how to spend ESSER 3.
That sounds great. Appreciate the explanation also by you, Will. I look forward to seeing that. It's probably going to be a really helpful document for us, and I appreciate you guys moving forward on getting that for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Liz Brown, and then Commissioner Rocco Orso, and then Student Representative Fatima Ali. Okay, we'll go with Liz first.
Yes, thank you very much for the outline of activities. It's very exciting. I just had a couple of comments. I was wondering, in the planning, is there any thought to really moving forward with establishing community schools that we had talked about, and especially in the pre-K to 8? Would this be an opportunity to really make that transition to a true community school, especially since we know that community schools really do engage the community, they engage parents more, and they're really schools of that really offer parents and children a lot more than just education. So just a comment, I wonder if this isn't an opportunity to really move on that because we've talked about that for a while. The second comment I have is in the facility study. I'm really excited about that. Is included in that, would there be a possibility to also look at resources of each individual school through the lens of equity? What schools have what and what schools need more, so that across the board, because we know some schools have a lot more infrastructure, libraries and cafeterias and kitchens and so forth, if that could be included in that. So that's a question I think would be really good. And the last thing I'm thinking of is where in the plan for the ESSER money, or maybe the third money, are the idea of community partnerships, because we know that our communities are struggling and our kids really need a very holistic approach. It's not just up to the school to really look at this, the gaps and so forth. So where would we see more of a strengthening of community partnerships so that we can see this modeling throughout the community, especially through a safety lens? So those are just some questions. You can answer me now or later.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Superintendent, would you like to respond, or Matt or Will?
Yes, and we could tag team, but I'd like to share. I hope I can remember the first one. Community schools. We have a partnership with Bridge to Success and Community Schools, and to my understanding, Bridge to Success has recently written a grant for some community school coordinators, which I believe are very important to a community school. And if you get the right community school coordinator, that person becomes a liaison between the school and the community, and really can accentuate the kind of programming that best meet the needs of the students within that community school model. So I think that the 4 schools that we have identified as community schools in the district can proceed as planned, pending the Bridge to Success receiving their grant and applying those community school coordinators into those 4 schools. The community school concept is really a mindset and an outreach to the community that resides within the school. So the partnerships that are built are not necessarily partnerships that are built because as a part of ESSER 2, it's a partnership that's built because of the relationship we have with Bridge to Success, and then those coordinators once we eventually get them into those 4 schools. So I kind of hope that answers your question. If not, I'll be happy to elaborate on that. In terms of the facilities, when and Will can elaborate on that part, but once we receive some RFPs and once through a very lengthy process, once this consultancy has been selected, there's a lot of quality time with the board. I mean, because you get to tell and share with this consultant what you want out of this and what you would like to see. So because eventually, you're gonna have a tool in your hands to be able to guide this district for the next multiple years. So the work and the depth of that work, the board sets the tone for what that's going to be, and so you get to tell them what you want and what you'd like to see out of that finished product, and they go to work and be able to provide that for you. And in terms of the community partnerships, I think we are working right now on a very complex endeavor over summer camps for example. We had a meeting today, but I had a very good meeting with the principals and teachers and assistant superintendents and everyone that worked so hard on what is the summer going to look like for learning for children. And I was so encouraged about what they said, because they reimagined it. The same, seat time does not work in summer school. If a child did not do well in school, putting them in a summer program for 4 weeks for more time does not equate success. It never has, it never will. And so to continue to do the same thing that we've always done without any positive results is just not where we're headed. So this team really did a magnificent job. And in one of the board meetings, maybe next month, the assistant superintendents can maybe get that crew in to explain to you what their plans are, our plans are to do summer very differently. Anywhere from having a STEM camp for 2 weeks, with Go IT and working with technology and making learning relevant, to summer with projects where students can actually apply math, science, language, arts, social studies in a project instead of just sitting behind a computer or sitting and just doing math problems, the application of it. And I'm so excited by that and the direction that that's going. I think that's probably the future of what summer learning should look like for children in Waterbury. Integrate the arts and make certain that students are connecting with the learning so that it's relevant to them. Because every time I meet with children, that's what they say. We need to understand why this is important, and it needs to be interesting and it needs to be engaging. And if when children are telling you that, you really need to pay attention. They want it to make sense to them. So in terms of that very complex work with summer camps, we're working with the mayor. He had a committee meeting today with members from Parks and Recreation, the faith-based community, both Pastor Reese and Pastor Hobson were there. Additional members of girls, boys and girls club. The Y was not there, but the Y is very much a part of that work. PAL is a part of that work. Just getting the community and all of the different activities that students can participate in the summer. But how are we going to do that together with all of this work that we have to do? And we are under the assumption that we're going to get lots of funding to be able to run a summer camp the way that we've never been able to do summer camps ever before in the city. So with that in mind, I'm probably going to come to you very soon and ask you for some job descriptions that will reflect the kind of work that we need. I spoke with Doreen today because I believe that there needs to be someone who's going to manage those projects. And I'm not talking the same projects that I talked to you about for Will's job. I'm talking to manage the projects of summer camps and summer learning and unprecedented funding that we have received in the district, that we need to know how, if we're going to pay students to work in these summer camps, to serve as tutors and to serve as counselors and mentor to younger children, we need to know what their job is going to look like. And we're not just going to pay people. We want to know what the return on our investment is going to be. How many children can we hire? Well, the mayor has already made a commitment to hire a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of children, and the children are excited about it. But we need to know, so what is that process going to look like? And Kathy Awad and the Northwest Investment Board have committed to sending resources at no cost to us to be able to work these summer programs. But we need someone to coordinate all of that. And then very importantly, in everything that we're doing, we need to know that what we're doing has a return on the investment. And the way that you can do that, you don't try to spread that work among all of the staff that's currently there, because managing $41 million plus the additional unknown sum that we're told could very easily be twice that amount is not an easy endeavor. And so to really be on point with that, to manage the programs, the people, what is it going to look like? How are we going to schedule students in summer school, plus summer camp, plus other programs that are being designed? How do we do that effectively? Plus, we mustn't forget that we have 21st century. So I will be coming to you and asking you for these new roles that we have to have to manage multiple millions of dollars working with Doreen and working with the schools. And Will, you can elaborate on any part of that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. But Liz, to a couple of your points, I think the historic funding model, as you well know, of education and schools, chases the money, chases the grant, chases the new shiny object and the theme, and the magnets get this and this one doesn't get that. This creates an opportunity to level some of those playing fields and to right some of those wrongs, and most importantly, to make the decisions at the district level. I mean, how many of us have been fighting in our legislative breakfasts and dinners for local autonomy? So yes, we have to submit an application, and yes, it has to be in these 5 silos, and yes, it has to do the things they're saying you need to do, but it's pretty broad. So we have some real opportunity, and I think the way Dr. Ruffin framed it out, the way Matt, Doreen, and the members of the team have put together those essentially listening tours, these have followed the same pattern from Dr. Ruffin since she first got here. So this is not coming out for the ivory tower and we're going in this direction. This is a collaborative. Voices are being heard and listened to, student voices at the table, faculty voice, union voice, et cetera. And what we're able to get from that is understand what are some of the strengths. I mean, just take an example of the IT and the one-to-one technology. We had a one-to-one plan. We didn't have the money, and we were missing one of the ones. But we got the funding, and then we were able to put the other one together, and 1 + 1 equals technology, or whatever other analogy I could butcher here. So Will's team had a plan. We had to take it to the next level, do some more support, do some more training, put those dollars when they finally came in the right direction. So all of that translates in the same exact planning that we're doing here. Getting the information, what has been holding your school back? What do you do well? What do you want to change? What can be effective? What can we replicate that's working here, over there, et cetera? And correct some of these issues with respect to facilities or unfunded mandates or deferred maintenance on things to make each school safe, comfortable learning environment that folks can do what that theme is supposed to do, what those teachers are supposed to do, what those kids are supposed to do in a place that they can feel welcome, that they can feel supported, that they can feel nurtured and loved. And so that's what a lot of this is really about, to really correct, I think, some of those things. So when we talk about this as a generational opportunity, it really is that thought has to all go into it, to think big, to think longer term, but also to again replicate and hopefully scale up the things that are working well. There's lots of really good stuff going on. Some of it just can't be sustained or funded properly, or and so forth. So let's replicate and scale up those things. Let's take best practices and supports and leverage resources and partners where appropriate. I mean, I met Miss Brown today on her first day. And she came over, and and she was brought over by Jackie Davis. So of course, Jackie Davis and I walking out this door, and she's walking in another, and we were both like, "This is the best time to be here, Kenesha. Like, you can put your stamp on this thing. You can get the wisdom of everybody else who's coming to these meetings, understand what's going on, and then you can take what your town and your spin is and be a part of something really big." So it's an exciting time. We have to be thoughtful about it, but I think all the things you said are extremely possible if leveraged in the right way. And I think we're approaching it in that way with Dr. Ruffin's leadership and the team she's assembled here. And I'm very excited about the next steps.
Thank you, Will. Commissioner Rocco Orso, I saw your hand up.
Yes, sir. Again, Matt and Doreen, excellent presentation tonight. Doreen, just one quick question. When does the ESSER grant have to be used by? ESSER 2, I'm sorry, ESSER 2.
ESSER 2, September of 2023.
Okay. So I know I sound like a broken record sometime, but now we are in April of 2021. So let's not wait till August of 2023 to do these projects. We have to plan, and plan. Because don't continue the mistakes of the past. Let's continue into the future with some good practices. And Mr. Clark, and you're right, just plan, and that's what we have to do. And you have the people in place, so let it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purchasing Director. Fatima Ally, our student representative from WCA. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay. So hi everyone.
Hello.
From WCA. So I just want to bring up, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. So we're like, when we compare our district to other districts that are like more successful in terms of academics or anything else, we're really trying to bridge that gap, like that equity gap. And the problem has always been funding and money. And now we have that funding to fix those issues. But the problem is we don't really know exactly what to do with the money. Like, we know what our weaknesses are because I think all of you guys have done a great job communicating with like families and students and figuring out where the funding needs to go. It's just how exactly do we allocate the funding and how do we make like these projects work long term. So I don't know if we already do this and we're just not aware, but Ashley and I were talking about it and we thought, why don't we, and Commissioner Brown brought this up, establishing community partnerships. So why don't we partner with wealthier districts that don't face the same issues that we do and have already tackled these issues so they know exactly what to do, because they've always had that funding and they once faced the problems that we face now, and they knew exactly what to do with that funding, and now they're successful. And we see that through their scores and stats and all of that. So what can we do to establish some sort of networking system to get their help in allocating these funds the right way so that they work for us long term?
Thank you, Fatima. Dr. Ruffin or Matt or Will, do you guys want to take a stab at that?
I want to hire Fatima.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Fatima, are you available this summer to work? Are you and Ashley up for working this summer? Because we have funding to pay you.
I'll help negotiate the
Looking for a
salary.
job.
Oh,
I think you just had your interview.
yeah, they had their interview last time. I was going to hire both of them if they wanted to be hired. Definitely. I think one of the staff members wanted to place them as a co-chair or something on some of their committees. Fatima, we do have networking that we do on the superintendent level, as well as professional learning that we do with other districts. We continue to do that in collaboration, and we participate in networks of schools that are prepared to do some very similar work to continue learning. Just a very brief comment about districts that are affluent have never had the issues that we've had. And so the affluent districts have never gone, there's no comparison. So while we can certainly all learn from each other, I think they learn best from us. Because when they're faced with challenges of being able to work in an environment that maybe hasn't always worked for them, sometimes they don't know what to do. And I can say that firsthand, having been in both. But there's always something that you could learn from someone. But I just wanted to be clear that affluent districts were never affluent and then became poor.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments or questions while we're here? Oh, Ashley, our other student representative.
Okay, so going off of that, so I definitely do understand, and I agree that their districts, there's just not really something that you can compare it to. But I think what we were trying to get at is if there's a way for us to work together in order to use some of their resources, since they just happen to have a surplus of resources from natural advantage. And so we were wondering if maybe we could do that. So one way, okay, so I used to live in Greenwich, and I know what it's like to live in one of those regions and having so much funding with all those different things. And because we lack in certain areas, we were thinking of proposing something like, for example, SAT prep. That's something that is implemented into their schools very early on, which is why they tend to score much higher than our districts. And of course, although we don't happen to have, well, we have way more diversity than they do, which can certainly be a problem to encounter, I think that it would be important to see if maybe we could partner with other districts that way in order to receive those SAT prep courses early on for our students to boost our scores as well. And even though, of course, there's not much of a comparison when it comes to our districts, when it comes to the challenges that we encounter. But even then, I still think that it would be beneficial for us to have access to those types of courses that they have already mastered for their students. And then in return, they can learn more about ours. And then maybe, I know some schools, what they do is they'll have students come in from different towns or different cities to attend their school, which I think would be a great way to diversify those districts, those affluent districts that don't have much diversity, and give our students an opportunity to receive an education in those areas as well as over here, but also boosting our education here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ash.
Dr. Ruffin, do you have any other comments or announcements for tonight?
I don't have any other comments or anything. I want to thank Ashley for her comments, and I do believe there's a lot to be garnered through collaboration, and certainly, believe that we're going to continue to learn. But I just also want to be very clear that affluent districts are not really willing to share their resources with any other districts.
Thank you. Commissioner Amanda Nardozzi, did I see your hand waving? No, you're muted, dear. There you go.
There you go. Okay. I just had a quick question. During the presentation, I think Doreen, you had mentioned there was a budget gap of 1.5 million. Can you just clarify that for me? Where was that addressed with the ESSER 1 or ESSER 2 funds?
So our budget gap for fiscal year 22 budget is a $1.9 million gap, as we're not going to receive an increase to our general fund budget. So it's going to be an ESSER 2, not ESSER 1.
Okay.
I
just wanted clarification.
Yeah, we're going to bridge that gap with ESSER 2 funds.
Okay. Thank you.
Because it was allowable in ESSER 2.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Karen Harvey, are you waving your hand or are you clearing your glass?
No, I'm not. I'm waving my hand. Almost. Yes.
Floor is yours.
Okay. 2 questions. Matt, I think I'm going to address this question to you. I just want to make sure I heard properly. When you're receiving the input from our parents and community, how are you going about that? How are you going about that? Meetings?
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Vice President Harvey. Yes, we had several meetings for folks, open meetings. We, at the end of those meetings, gave a thought exchange for those folks to give their perspective. We captured that, and then we sent out multiple times surveys over Parent Square, surveys to principals. And I do want to be clear, the surveys we sent were qualitative, so it wasn't, check the box, do you want more or less? People really had to answer, and so in some ways it might have limited some folks from answering. It was in multiple languages, but in the other ways, the answers we got there for were really, really rich, and we really then dove into that data. So that was the way in which we solicited those comments.
All right, thank you, Matt. And just a comment, just a general comment, that when I was listening to the community partnership, I'm happy to hear that we have reached out to our faith-based community, the ministers that were mentioned, Reverend Reese, Reverend Hobson, and I hope we continue to do that because they have facilities that we can use, and the students live in these communities. So I'm happy to hear that. And also on the equity issue that Commissioner Brown brought up, as you were talking, Commissioner Brown, I was thinking about, for some reason, Kingsbury School and what they have to go through, for example, for their lunch periods. And then, if they want to have an assembly, what equipment they have, old chairs versus, you go to Rotella, that's an extreme, but you go to a Rotella and everything is new. So I'm happy to hear that we're going to have that assessment. I hope these things come up. during the assessment. So that's all I have, President Pagano.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey.
President Pagano, if I can just quickly, to that point, Karen, on
Yep.
Kingsbury, we are tracking that in particular. And for Kingsbury, pre-ESSER, in the Alliance bond grant we have, Kingsbury is scheduled to get a new playground and gym floor replacement. So, we've been trying to, and this is one of those schools that, as a neighborhood school, a non-magnet, not quite in some of these other categories, doesn't always get those funds. So we were cognizant of that, and when funds came available, put them in there. But it's that type of thing that can be made more available to other schools, and not just maybe a onesie, twosie every, but really a more comprehensive assessment. And in the case of Kingsbury, like a boiler replacement, for example.
Good.
And ventilation.
Thank you, Will.
Yep. You got it.
Thank you, Will. Commissioner Juanita Hernandez, I see your hand. The floor is yours.
So, Will, you know what I'm going to say.
The Walsh boiler is being replaced also, Juanita, and Walsh gym floor being replaced as well. And we have money set aside. Might not be able to get to it this summer now with everything else going on, but the other Walsh floor and leveling in the classrooms and so forth. So definitely the boiler. We actually had a meeting today. Will Zuda was involved in it with me as well, with the engineer and folks in facilities. That project has already begun. To Rocco's point, the bid. We're just moving forward with the contract's done. It's the timing and just getting it worked out when we're going to do that. And this summer, we just got the bids back for the floor replacement for both of those schools. So there's stuff moving at Walsh as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, Juanita. Any other last minute questions before I turn the floor back over to Dr. Ruffin? All right, Dr. Ruffin, any other comments?
No, there's going to be a lot of continued work, for the remainder of course, April, May, and June, and way beyond that. I did announce to our board, and all of the high schools already know this and are sharing and communicating with their families the graduation dates. We also know that with the guidance of their principal, as well as the emergency management team and the reopening team, members of my executive staff for the health department, as well as the City of Waterbury's crisis management team, we're working on other activities that principals are inquiring about, working with their staff to have honors programs and to have socially distant programs that are allowable, because we want our students to be celebrated this year, a lot different than last year, but so much better than last year. And so we want to be extremely cognizant of the fact that we are still in a pandemic, that we're navigating it as very best as we can. We're pleased that we're going to be able to have outdoor graduations this year at Municipal Stadium. And so we keep doing and making decisions based on the current data. The information was asked, and some people are asked about whether we can have prom. If having to make the decision, if I had to make it today, the answer is no, because we're not in a position today to be able to do that with the cases that we still have, and of course with social distancing. That does not mean in another 2 months we can we can rethink something else, but as of today, based on the data, proms are not one of those things that we're planning on having at this time. And that is based on the current data that we have in terms of the school safety and the number of COVID cases that we still see happening in the city of Waterbury, and all of the safety protocols and advice that we get from various agencies that we work with every day. So we are going to continue to communicate with everyone about the summer programming, and I look forward to coming back with the board with some more information during our May meetings. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ruffin. And speaking as an engineer, I totally agree. It's all in the numbers, and the numbers change. The numbers may vary, and you have my support on that. Many of you know I've had a couple of personal issues hit me over the last couple of weeks. I've gone back to Richard Carlson's book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. P.S. It's all small stuff. So I want to thank Vice President Harvey for pitching in for me, as I couldn't be at the last meeting as I was attending my third week of the quarter. And I want to just make sure everyone stays healthy and stay on track for what the real stuff is all about. Don't sweat it, because it's all small stuff. All right, our two student representatives, would you like to add anything more? Fatima? Ashley? Oh, Fatima, go ahead.
Well, we had some ideas for just in terms of next year, like the curriculum and professional development. We had some ideas for that, but I don't know if you want us to talk about them now.
Well, it'd probably be good to get a hold of Mr. Schwartz next week. He's running the shop, isn't he?
That
Well-
only temporarily.
Yeah, okay, well.
And Fatima, you're always welcome at the curriculum.
But
committee.
Fatima and Ashley asked for contact information, and I sent that to them, and so we're going to talk about all of their, and I look forward to it, actually, very,
And
very
Commissioner
much.
Van Stone invited you to the curriculum committee meeting whenever, and that would probably be a good launching pad to start the ideation process at that level.
I would love that.
Thank you, Fatima. Ashley, you have anything you want to add?
No, we were just gonna talk about those things, but
Okay.
there's a better time, then we can wait.
Well, now you know the process that you can take. Commissioner Van Stone is standing by to help you. All right. Our next item is number 9, the consent calendar. As delineated on our agenda, there are items number 9.1 through 9.11. Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent calendar? Commissioner Harvey, is your hand up? No? Okay, thank you. All right, I will then go forward with the reading of the consent calendar. Item 9.1, a request of approval to participate in the Healthy Food Certification Program per CGS 10-215F. Item 9.2, a request of approval of the food and beverage exemption statement from the Healthy Food Certification relative to CGS 10-221Q. Item 9.3, request of approval to apply for the fiscal year 2021 through 2022 School Readiness Continuation Funding Grant application. Item 9.4, request approval to apply for the Connecticut State Department of Education state-funded after-school grant program for Kingsbury and Wilson Elementary Schools. Item 9.5, request approval to apply for the Connecticut State Department of Education funded after-school grant program for Wallace and North End Middle Schools. Item 9.6, request approval to apply for Connecticut State Department of Education state-funded after-school grant program for Duggan and Tinker Elementary Schools. Item 9.7, request approval to apply for the Connecticut State Department of Education state-funded after-school grant program for Hopeville and Washington Elementary Schools. Item 9.8, request approval to apply for the Individual with Disabilities Act, or IDEA, 2022 grant. Item 9.9, request approval of a professional services agreement with Milestone C LLC to provide aerospace engineering and computer science curriculum. Item 9.10, use of school facilities by school organizations and/or city departments. And finally, item 9.11, use of school facilities by outside organizations and/or waiver requests. Can I have a motion, please, for items?
Motion.
Yep.
Motion to approve the consent calendar, items 9.1 through 9.11. 1.11.
Thank you, Commissioner Harvey.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion or comments or anything outstanding? Good, we'll move on, and all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, please say no. Abstain, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. We are now up to agenda item number 11, Committee on Policy and Legislation. Commissioner Ann Sweeney, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve revised policy number 9010, organization and methods of operation, formerly named bylaws.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to add to the order of business in this section after committee reports, new business.
Second.
It's on page 29.
Okay. I see Commissioner Van Stone's hand up. Do we take a vote on this first, on this motion?
This is my hand down. There's no discussion on a motion, so never mind.
Okay, thank you.
No, there is discussion on the amendment.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm offering this amendment because I think we as board members need an opportunity in the agenda, and it could, under new business, board members would have an opportunity to speak. This is the only part of the agenda where we have an opportunity to speak. We could react to certain things, of course, from the superintendent. We do have a good discussion, but I think it's important to have a specific agenda item where board members can speak.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Stone, are you raising your hand? I saw your lips moving. Oh, you're all set?
I'm talking to myself.
That's okay. I do it all the time. Commissioner Harvey, do I see your hand up?
Yes, you do. President Pagano, I want to just echo what Commissioner Brown has stated. With the removal of the old business and then new business, it really doesn't give us commissioners an opportunity to bring up something that may have occurred during the week, or if we have not had a chance to discuss certain things, or it does not appear on the agenda. I believe that we kind of need that without having to make a motion, without having to do all this stuff, that it's on the agenda, and that we're able to address issues that may or may not be on the agenda during that time. So I fully go along with this amendment.
Thank you. Commissioner Ann Sweeney, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee voted to remove those two items because Robert's Rules of Order allow opportunities under personal privilege and under the making of a motion to bring up any items that are not on the agenda that a commissioner wishes to speak to. The current use of those two agenda items is not consistent with parliamentary procedure, and oftentimes just becomes a place for people to talk about personal opinions, and it just doesn't give a representative flavor to the meeting. So again, it was voted out of committee to remove it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Anybody else want to add anything? All right, just so I'm straight, we are now going to vote on the policy request, 11.1.
No, so we have to vote on the amendment, sir.
Oh, okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment and then move forward after that. Okay. So Commissioner Van Stone, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have a clarification from the chair on the definition of a yes vote and a no vote for this item. If
Good point. Good
any
point.
one of us could maybe help with that if need be, but I would think it would go back to the chair of the committee to just define a yes vote, no vote, or whoever. But through the chair, I think a definition of yes and no is appropriate.
Yeah, there you go. I agree, Tom.
I didn't quite hear you. Ann. Did you say something?
Yeah, I'm just want to clarify Commissioner Van Stone's question. Are you asking for what the vote was? How many yeses, how many noes? Is that at the committee level?
What I'm asking for is the definition of a yes, no, and no vote right now on the amendment, just so people are clear what they're voting for, yes or no on.
Okay.
So my interpretation, if I may, would be a yes vote says leave it as part of the agenda, and a no vote would say go with the committee and remove it. It would be my understanding of how it was proposed.
No, the amendment, the amendment was to add that language back in.
Right.
So a yes vote would be to add it back in, a no vote would be to leave it off.
Right.
I think we said it in different ways, but yes, I agree.
Okay.
So we're clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am. I just wanted, through the chair, I just wanted to make sure voting members were clear.
Okay. So now we want to take a vote on the amendment?
Yes. Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Do we want to do this as a roll call, just so we have it delineated? Carrie?
Roll call on the amendment. Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Vice President Harvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Hernandez,
No.
Commissioner Nardozzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Orso,
No.
Commissioner Serrano Adorno,
No.
Commissioner Stango,
No.
Commissioner Sweeney,
No.
Commissioner Van Stone,
Yes.
President Pagano.
No.
4-6, the amendment fails.
Thank you, everyone. So now we move on to the 11.1. Commissioner Ann Sweeney, do you have your hands waving there?
I do. Motion to amend the revised bylaws under item, apologize. Okay, under the Committee on School Personnel, item D, to strike the language, the committee may perform any other duties necessary to ensure an equitable and diverse staff.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes? Floor
Mr.
is yours.
President, yep, Mr. President, I spoke to this at the workshop as well as at the committee level, that I don't believe that this language is appropriate for the School Personnel Committee. Our personnel policies, our equity policy, our mission statement all speak to equity and diversity. And it is the board's duty to hold the superintendent and his or her staff responsible for delivering on that. It is not a committee function. So I have asked that we remove that language.
Okay. Commissioner Liz Brown, do I see your hand up?
I get that, Commissioner Sweeney, but I think it's important for the Personnel Committee to review these things. The committee may perform any other duties necessary to ensure an equitable and diverse staff. Now, that may be a revision of policy, or it may be other ways that the responsibility of the Personnel Committee to be looking at those issues. So I think it's important to kind of explicitly give the Personnel Committee that that responsibility and that obligation actually to work on these issues. So I'm in favor, I would not be in favor of eliminating it.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Harvey, do I see your hand waving?
You do. Thank you, President Pagano. You know, it scares me that in this current climate that we're in, that particularly with everything going on, and that we want to eliminate these key words out of our bylaws. You know, I had the opportunity quickly to look at, just take a sampling of, you know, Hartford Public Schools, and I'm sure that, you know, if it was, if I go further and go to New Haven or Windsor or etc., Hartford Public Schools, under Personnel Committee, recruit, develop, and retain a diverse, culturally competent, highly effective staff to ensure equity and excellence in achieving goals, board and system goals. And, you know, for us here at Waterbury, particularly with personnel and knowing what we've been through, 2016, you know, we had to answer to CHRO over our hiring practices. And we were able to get through that with the coordinated help of the advisory committee, working with the personnel committee. That was a time when then Johanna Hayes was in charge of, you know, in personnel. She was a supervisor. So, you know, I just think that it's a wrong move for us, particularly the board, the commissioners. I mean, we need to be reminded too that this is what we need, you know, we need to do. Tonight, we're going to vote on a directive of equity and inclusion. And it just seems like this wording, these words need to be here or remain where they are, just so as a reminder to us of what we need to do. Okay, so I just wanted to interject that. So I echo what Commissioner Brown is saying. Thank you.
Commissioner Harvey. Anybody else have any comments before we move on? I don't see anybody's head moving. Oh, Commissioner Rocco Orso and then Commissioner Tom Van Stone.
I just have a question. I know we're in difficult situations, as you said, Commissioner Harvey, but as a board, are we only chore, not chore, but to do any hiring is hiring of the superintendent. If there's other hiring that goes on, isn't it the responsibility of the HR department or the school department to hire these people? Even if we didn't see anything that was going wrong, can we do anything about it? I don't know. This is my question. Maybe somebody could answer this question for me.
That's a good question. That's what delineates what a board is versus what a management structure is. And I personally don't believe we're management, we're a board. Anybody want to comment on that?
I agree with you, Commissioner Pagano, but the wording in this is more towards policy and not actual hiring. So I think it's appropriate for the Personnel Committee to look at, to hold the system accountable and not actually do the hiring, which you're absolutely right.
Thank you, Commissioner Brown. Commissioner Ann Sweeney, I see your hand up.
Yes, so again, the Personnel Committee doesn't have any authority over the actual personnel department. As with any other committee, something comes out of the committee and goes to the board for a vote. So the real mechanics of what gets put into our personnel department comes from the top down, comes from the superintendent and her staff and how she builds her staff and in particular, how she builds that staff of the personnel department, he or she, whoever it may be at the time. So it really is on the board as a whole to hold those people accountable for following our hiring policy, for following our equity policy, for following our mission statement and delivering on all of those. And that's the way I see this. And so I think the importance to the whole board should be in that venue and not in a committee where it's only half the board. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sweeney. Commissioner Van Stone, I got sidetracked. The floor is yours.
No problem. First off, I'll ditto to what Commissioner Brown said with the, I'm looking at this more as a policy comment, not an HR comment. So I will be in favor, but in addition to that, if, again, through the chair, if we could just make sure the full board knows what a no and what a yes vote is again on this, please.
Before we get that, can we go to Commissioner Stango and then answer that question? Commissioner Charles Stango, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Pagano. The last time we spoke about this in workshop, I was going to offer up an amendment, and I don't think I need to at this point. I think I agree with the amendment of Commissioner Sweeney. The language should be removed completely rather than change it around. You know, it's not what we do is correct as a board. We could take that line, just as that we want to remove. We can take that line and just change the name of the committee and put it in every single committee. And if we think it makes sense in personnel, that line makes sense in building, it makes sense in policy, it makes sense in any committee that we have. But we're not doing it. We're not doing it because we don't need it there. So I would not be in favor of leaving that line there. I'd be in favor of removing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Stango. Commissioner Harvey?
Yes, thank you, President Pagano. Again, you know, this is on policy, and frankly, Commissioner Stango, maybe we should put this in every single standing committee. This type of verbiage, but again, what are we saying? You know, it's not important to have these words in here to remind us about what we should be doing. Again, I remind you that it was the Board of Education, okay, and the mayor that had to appear before CHRO regarding our hiring practices. And we came through that, but we had to go do, there was a lot of work that was involved with rewording, different procedures that we had to, and it was the personnel committee that had to do that, along with the advisory committee. So again, you know, I have to repeat what Hartford believes it's important to keep diversity and equity. We are looking at other districts for this handbook. So why can't we look at what's happening, you know, in Hartford as an example? So I think it's a bad movement to exclude these words in an urban district under personnel with our history. So I agree with keeping those words in. Thank you, President Pagano.
Thank you for your comments. Now, Ann, do you want to go back and answer Commissioner Van Stone's delineation on yes and no?
I would do that, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow me a comment here. I don't think I heard anybody say that those words are not important. This district takes them, and this board takes those words very seriously. That is why they are in our mission statement. That is why they are in why we have an equity policy. That is why we have, you know, I'm losing some of my thoughts here, but they are very important to all of us. I see them in places where when the public comes to our website, they see that. When they come to that district site and they see our mission statement, they see our equity policy. I don't see that people are going to go and browse our bylaws looking for where our equity statement is, where our commitment to equity in learning is. So I think that it is already in some very prominent spots where people can hold this board accountable for holding our district employees accountable for delivering on that. It is our responsibility to make sure this district delivers on our mission statement, delivers on our equity policy. And that's where I believe that it belongs. In terms of the vote on the amendment, a yes vote would delete the language, a no vote would leave it in.
Thank you. And Carrie, are we going to do a roll call vote again? Hold on. Commissioner Harvey, do you want to talk again?
Yeah, I just wanted to, because I don't want to leave that standing. If it's important to this board, then it should be important enough to leave it where it is. So I just want to make that comment. Thank you, President Gunn.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on and take a vote on this.
It's going to be a roll call on the second amendment request.
Correct.
Commissioner Brown?
No.
Vice President Harvey?
No.
Commissioner Hernandez?
Yes.
Commissioner Nardozzi?
No.
Commissioner Orso?
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano Adorno?
Yes.
Commissioner Stango?
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Stone?
No.
President Pagano?
Yes.
Motion to amend passes 6-4. So the motion on the floor is 11.1 as amended.
All right. Commissioner Sweeney, did you want to speak on this at all? You're all set?
Yep, I'm all set as long as the rest of the commissioners are all set with the other parts of this. It really, in general, should have a read if the board would like. I will read the whole section. I would read the whole revised section if the board would like, but I think everybody has a copy. It came in your packet. So as long as the board is fine with that, this does require a 2/3 vote to pass and a roll call vote.
Okay. Anybody have a comment or a request of Commissioner Sweeney? I know I've read it 3 times already, so I don't need her to read it to me again. Commissioner Tom Van Stone?
Oh, I don't need her to read it to me. I have questions and comments on this.
Go for it.
On the item. We're ready for that. Thank you.
Yeah, the floor is
Thank you,
yours.
Mr. Chairman, through you. So, so for the committee, I do have some comments and questions, certainly not on the whole thing. The first one was order of business. I had a comment on. We already took care of that. The next section would have been, it's under, let's see, I'm flipping my pages. Under standing committees, I believe I have my pages in order. Organizational and methods of operation. Can you follow me on that, Commissioner Sweeney?
Okay.
Let's see. There's a section here that talks about, let's make sure I'm in my right section. I'm sorry. I have so many notes scribbled on it. I apologize. Let me just get my thoughts together here. Because what happened was I had an old section and a new section, and tonight's delineated anything that was in before and not in, so I'm kind of comparing 2 sets of notes here. I'm sorry. But there's a section that talks about the majority and the minority, and you may, and it took out, it was, I believe, the old number, the letter C, where if a report goes in, it should be signed by the committee chair, and the minority group on the committee would be allowed to present maybe a different opinion. and that was totally removed. And I just take a little exception to anything for the minority party being removed out of anything. I know I've never actually done it before. Yeah, I did find it here. It used to be letter C. And I actually didn't even know the paragraph was in there, but it's understanding committees. And I think it needs to stay in there, because why should, if we always had a policy that said the minority party could write an opinion basically and present it, why would we take it out? What was the reasoning for taking it out?
Commissioner Sweeney?
So the reasoning for taking it out was because it didn't never occur. And it doesn't occur, I believe, because we work on a workshop. So if you look at the Board of Aldermen, they have their committee meetings just prior to the meeting, and there's no discussion in between. So
that's fine. What they do. It's
file
what,
a
I'm talking about what we do.
Yep, what we do is we do a workshop and we discuss everything that comes through. So hence the importance of, not pushing things through to a voting meeting if there's any contention at the committee meeting.
Well, there may not be contention, but what I'm speaking to is something that it was there at some point in time. Some Board of Education felt it was necessary to put that sentence in there. It's right. It's only one sentence, not even a couple sentences. But I just take exception to anything that eliminates an opportunity for the minority party to write an opinion. I just don't think that's right. It was put in there at some point in time, and I take exception. I didn't make a motion. I'm just telling you I take exception to it being taken out, because I'm smart enough after my 8 years on this board that know that I could have put this up for an amendment and it would have failed. So, I wouldn't even waste my time doing that. I'm just standing there now giving an opinion that a minority party should not be eliminated when the opportunity presents itself. Because right now, the minority party never gets a vote passed. It's just the way it is. So I'm not looking to take an opportunity to state an opinion from the minority on anything. I think it's wrong to have taken that out. I got more on this policy.
Okay.
I don't know if maybe someone can take the floor later. The next one I have is under actually policy and legislation. And I'm going back to the old paper because the new one, of course, it disappears.
I will be right back, guys. Commissioner Harvey, just watching my absence. I'll be right back.
Okay,
You
President,
previously
go ahead.
had a
Go ahead,
letter
Commissioner.
D. You previously had a letter D under legislation that said the committee shall report to the committee as a whole prior to the board action. Approval of the full board is required for all communications of positions on legislative issues on behalf of the board. And I absolutely take exception to that. We had a letter go out recently that a couple of us on the board did not like the way it was worded, but of course it was voted to send it anyway. And if you totally take it away from the committee as a whole, that means if the legislative committee on a given night has only 3 members there, and that's a quorum, 3 members will now write a letter speaking for 7 other members that were not present, and we have no input into that letter. So I really take exception again, and again, I won't bring it up in its amendment because it will fail. How can, in a true situation, 3 people on a legislative board or the legislative committee write a letter that speaks for 10 people when only 3 people there is a quorum? So that was my next one. And that was it on this particular item. So I make my disagreements. I want them known. I want them on record. I just know very well that if they went to an amendment, like everything we try, it would fail. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Van Stone. Commissioner Sweeney?
Yes, in regards to that, it was taken out because there is a section that says under organization and methods of operation, it's headed 9010D, and it is section C, it says all committee actions, not just personnel committee, all committee actions are subject to the approval of the board. So it was not necessary to put that in just that one committee, because this applies to all committees. So nothing goes through without the approval of the board.
Where is that, please?
9010D, as in David.
Page 31.
That's not in the packet tonight, is it? Oh, it is?
Yes. Yeah, that's the revised.
Okay, let me get to it, because that will answer my question. I think my argument was legitimate if it was completely gone to the board. D, right? You said D as in David?
Yes, correct.
And where will I find that? Letter
C at the top.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation, and I apologize if I had been an active member of the workshop. I probably would have heard that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Stone. Commissioner Liz Brown, is your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. I know, Tom, my reading of that was not a minority party. Were you thinking it meant a minority party? I thought it was just a minority opinion of the committee, not a specific party. So that was my understanding. So,
well, considering that I'm not only the minority party, I'm always the minority opinion, I would once again go against saying that it should be eliminated.
No, you're not always a minority.
Is that better?
no, I just wanted to clarify for myself because I never thought it was meant minority party. So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, Commissioner Sweeney, what are we doing next? Is this a vote?
This is a vote on the amended, revised organization and methods of operation.
All right, and a
And
yes vote delineates what?
The acceptance of the amended version.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Clerk Carrie Swain.
Okay, Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Vice President Harvey,
No.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Yes.
Commissioner Nardozzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Orso,
Yes.
Commissioner Serrano Adorno,
Yes.
Commissioner Stango,
Yes.
Commissioner Sweeney,
Yes.
Commissioner Van Stone,
No.
President Pagano.
Yes,
8-2, motion carries.
thank you very much. Commissioner Sweeney, the next agenda item?
I'm here. I just have to bring it up.
Okay, no worries.
My computer is not cooperating. Okay. I apologize again for the delay. Ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9012, powers, purposes, and duties.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Any discussion? I don't see any hands waving. So, Clerk Swain, would you like to take a roll call vote, please? Or do you want to do it all in favor?
Yeah, not necessary on this one for a roll call unless somebody wants one.
Oh, it's not, okay.
All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain, motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you. Commissioner Sweeney, next one.
Item 11.3, ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9222, resignation, censure.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Commissioner Hernandez, are you waving your hand?
I am. Can you
You have the floor.
can you just go over that, Ann, please? A little bit.
Okay, do you want me to read the policy itself? Is that what you need?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was one of the policies recommended by our board attorney, Tara Shaw. Resignation and censure. Resignation, if for reasons of health, change in domicile, or any other compelling reason a member does decide to terminate service, the board requests as early as possible notification of intent to resign so that the board may plan appropriately. When a member of a board of education shall cease to be a bona fide resident of the city of Waterbury, membership in the board shall immediately cease. Under censure, the board may vote to censure or reprimand a member by 2/3 majority vote of the membership of the whole board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hernandez, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, President Pagano.
Thank you, dear. Commissioner Tom Van Stone, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick note I wrote on that, no disagreement or anything. Just the fact that when when we get notified, however, we get notified of someone leaving the board, I'm not sure what we plan for because we don't have any authority in choosing that next member. So we're out of the picture totally. So I don't know. I'm just wondering why we thought that was necessary.
Commissioner Sweeney?
Yeah, it was recommended by Attorney Shaw that we should have something in place that states some kind of a procedure, even if it's that there is no procedure. So she just recommended both of those as just good practice to have.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to make that point that it's out of our hands.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Good, valid question. Anybody else have a comment or question? All right. All in favor by passing this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Commissioner Sweeney, next one, 11.4.
Item 11.4, ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9270, Conflict of Interest Code of Ethics.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion, questions, comments? I don't see any hands waving, so if you're in favor with this, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. Abstain? Motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you. Item 11.5. Commissioner
Item 11.5.
Wait a minute, hold on. 11.4.
We did that.
Oh, we just did that
did
one.
it,
I'm sorry. Then 11.5.
11.5. Item Item 11.5, ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9314, suspension of policies.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Anybody have a discussion point, a question, or a comment? Commissioner Juanita Hernandez.
Ann, can you please go over that one as well? Read it. Thank you.
Yep. You just like hearing my voice tonight.
It's like a bedtime storytelling time.
Give me just a second. I lost it. Okay, suspension of policies. The board sets policy. The superintendent's administration develops regulations to carry out said policies. The board may review regulations at its discretion. Policies, bylaws, and board-adopted regulations may be suspended for a specified purpose and for a limited time by a majority vote of the board.
Thank you. Commissioner Hernandez,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anybody else have a comment or question? All right, I don't see any hands raising. Please, if you're in agreement, please signify by saying aye that the motion carries.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Abstain? Motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sweeney, 11.6, please.
Item 11.6, ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9325, quorum, parliamentary procedure, rules of order.
Second.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion points? Anyone have a question or a discussion on? I don't see anybody's hand waving. If you're in agreement with this policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sweeney, 11.7.
Item 11.7, ladies and gentlemen, the Committee on Policy and Legislation recommends the Waterbury Board of Education approve new policy number 9327, electronic mail communications.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments, questions? I personally hate email, but that's secondary. If you're in agreement with this new policy, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, please. Motion, the ayes have it. Motion carries.
Yep.
Commissioner Ann Sweeney, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you on this. Our next agenda item is item number 12, Committee on School Personnel. Commissioner Charles Stango, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Item 12.1. It's regarding the request for approval of the job specifications for and a new position of the Director of Equity and Inclusion. Ladies and gentlemen, with the approval of the Committee on School Personnel, the Superintendent of Schools recommends the approval of the job specifications for and a new position of Director of Equity and Inclusion. Said position will replace the current position of the District Climate and Attendance Coordinator. Respectfully submitted and so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, comments, or questions? Commissioner Commissioner Van Stone, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you. I don't have any objections at all to the job write-up. Job write-up is excellent one. Actually, one of the better ones we ever pieced together, or the team pieced together. What I do object to is the difference that was made in the salary range. We basically doubled the salary range. I know there's some changes in this job write-up, additional responsibilities, etc. But to go from a $60,000 to an $80,000 range to a $120,000 to $160,000 is just too excessive. We can't handle that at this time. Maybe we should have went with a lower bottom and bring that person along. You want to leave the ceiling up where it is, fine, let them get there. But to just double it right out of the box, we just can't afford this. And I know it's being half grant money, half operating budget, and to me, I'm not even sure how we do that. But I can't accept this based on the salary range. Job description, fine, but salary range I just can't go for. So I'll be voting no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stango, is your hand up? Go for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President. I asked a question, something like this at the committee meeting. And my question regarded to the superintendent and to Mr. Mendoza was, why are we at that level of a directorship? I said, have we considered a coordinator or a manager or a supervisor? And I believe that was Mr. Mendoza who in his presentation began with, this new position is a model of the state. The state has begun doing this and recommending this in various districts, and some districts have already picked this up for this position as we're doing this evening. And it's because of that reason that we're following the state's lead in doing this, that the position has been elevated to that of a directorship. I did ask that question, and that's the answer I received. My concern, though, with that is that I'm saying we're doing this because our Board of Education, as a Board of Education, is an arm of the state, and so we go along with that, and I'm happy. I'm happy that Waterbury is in the forefront and the lead somewhat of doing this with the state, advocating to do this. So I supported that. But and on the other hand, I think that even though we're an arm of the state, we must maintain some anonymity in doing it. We have to autonomy. I'm sorry, not anonymity. So that's the reason why the position is called a director, and that's why the price, the salary range has gone up. I have a few other items here about other issues in this particular description. Unless the superintendent wants to come in now and just give a briefing, I will continue, but I'll give the superintendent that invitation first. Dr. Ruffin.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. I'll be more than happy to respond, but please continue, and I can respond at the end.
All right, and what I'm reporting on here is a lot of what the discussion took place the other night. So I don't want to sound redundant, but everyone didn't hear it. Or a concern, I want to say, with the some of the language in this, because I believe it raises a red flag, and we have to do it with caution. Let me get my description. Here it is. Okay, this is one of the one of the items that I have in concern about, and it reads: in conjunction with the academic office, this person examines texts and other curricular resources for a diverse representation, included but not limited to race, culture, gender, religion, and LGBTQ. So I just want to caution the board, and myself for that matter, that we have recently read about, I have, and saw video presentations on problems that other districts have had, not neighboring districts of our own, but nationwide, about some overzealous committees and overzealous, I want to say, directors or supervisors that brought back to the curriculum outlandish, in my opinion, textbooks with far-reaching ideas. And then they had to walk it back. Then they had to take issue with certain things that were mentioned in it. So I want to raise a red flag to that. And I want to, and I don't want to deal with that pushback. Now, I don't know the ultimate candidate here. I don't know his or her philosophy. I don't know their personality. But I do know that Waterbury is a tradition-based city, and we need to keep that in mind. Having said that, however, I also know that the superintendent, and I know that I have confidence in her and her team And I know that they will monitor that selection of text very carefully. And I would like to myself be tuned in to just what's going on. I asked that committee meeting if the board has ultimate approval of text, and the superintendent explained very thoroughly that the board does not have approval of text because the board has already approved the curriculum and the textbooks are being purchased to fit that curriculum. I hear that, but because I respect and trust the superintendent, I know that will be monitored. I already spoke to the directorship and the coordinator, Mr. Commissioner Van Stone's issue. And I think that's it. I would like to say, I will support this. I think it's for the greater good. And I know the superintendent will be on top of it as we move forward. But I think we have to be very cautious at certain times. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Stone. Anybody else have anything that they want to bring up? I don't. Karen Harvey, is your hand waving?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Thank
The floor is
you,
yours.
President Donald. Okay, thank you. I am happy. First of all, I can just say director and use the word equity and inclusion. So I'm happy that I could do that. I applaud this. I'm just gonna say, because the elephant's in the room, I look at the different job descriptions, different items and things in here, and I just thank goodness for Jackie Davis and her work that she did. I'm looking down at the work that she's done in her position, I just thank her for what she's done for this district and what she's done for our students. During the discussion, the personnel committee, I was looking for the different items, the collaboration I was looking at, as far as the community was concerned, and I was surprised that there was no mention of Dr. Ruffin of the Diversity Council. That's new, but because I know Jackie, for example, has filled in for you because we've had some conflicts of meeting with some meetings. So I was surprised that that's not in here and no one mentioned it during the discussion of the job description. So I would hope that would be included, the mention of the Diversity Council, because I think it's important that this person be included in on that and monitors that. When I believe there was also a discussion on the work schedule, there was discussion on whether or not it would be a union or part of SAW, etc. And that okay, I'm okay with. But to Jackie's credit, it was not unusual when there was something in the community and it was held during either an evening or the weekend. It was not unusual to see Jackie Davis there filling in or representing the district. So I don't know if this would be through an explanation of the person who will be hired to do this, but I would hope that there's some flexibility in this person's work schedule, and that it may involve, okay, if there is a event during the community that this person may have to or should be there to represent the school district. So I would hope that there would be some consideration there or some inclusion of that or explanation to this person that fills this position, because we didn't have to explain it to Jackie. She automatically did it. So, and again, I want to thank her for that. School climate, particularly as it relates to, I see it mentioned in the bullet points, and I think this was also, well, not think, but this was also included in Jackie's job description. But this school climate, particularly as it relates to student arrests, I don't know if there's enough talk about that in this job description, that how important it is that this person stays on top of this and produces data, because as a board member, I'm gonna request that. How are we doing with student arrest and the monitoring of that? Because even though we have improved, there's a long ways we have to go. So, I don't know. I just kind of question if we mention that enough in this job description, the school climate and student arrest, the monitoring of that, and the restorative justice. So I just want to bring that out. When we talk about trauma, I'm trying to look what bullet point that is. It was just a mention of trauma, not urban trauma. And because our kids go through different things than other districts. Through a district, and no disrespect, but our students, we know, go through things different than a Greenwich would go through, or a Stanford. So I'm just wondering, when we mention trauma, if we should put urban trauma. So just those things, I think we need to include, just to repeat, need to include diversity council, because that's what we have now. And that's a committee that of importance. Maybe to talk through the restorative practices, and one other thing, and the relationship collaboratively with the police department, and working on those restorative practices. Again, I didn't see, it's just kind of a list of things, but these are the key areas that this person hopefully will be working with. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Harvey. Any other comments or questions? All right. I guess we're at a vote point. Say again. Who's speaking? Raise your hand, please. Commissioner Juanita Hernandez, I see your hand.
So this is not a draft. This is the specs for this position.
It's the job description.
Job description.
Okay, thanks.
Okie doke. Commissioner Harvey, are you looking to talk again? It's hard for me to see your hand. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm using my phone, so sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. So Dr. Ruffin, do you want to comment on? I mean, just some things that I said. I mean, do you have any comments there regarding? Because I was not part of the. I mean, I was there, but I could not comment in committee.
I can, but I could wait until all of the commissioners have had an opportunity to speak, and I could speak last if you would prefer.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Okay. Oh, wait, Commissioner Nardozzi.
I just had a, thank you, through you. I just had a chance just to quickly review it now, and I'll just reiterate what Commissioner Harvey had said. I do think it needs to address more of the restorative justice aspect. We had discussed a few meetings ago that we don't even have access to appropriate data, or how we're going to collect that data going forward for arrests. So I think that is something that needs to be addressed before we can really put this job description out there. So I think that that is something that has to be done before we can approve it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Dr. Ruffin, no one else has got their hand up, so you have the floor. Thank you, Commissioner Nardozzi.
Yes, thank you, everyone, for your comments. So I'm going to elaborate a little on each one of the comments. The actual job that Jackie Davis did encompassed a lot more than the job description of school climate and attendance, much more than that. I believe her job description was last written in 2018. So she was more than capable of delivering on all of that. No job description is going to be able to detail everything that I expect everybody to do to be able to do the work that we need in this district. And so having said that, we agreed several positions ago to try to condense job descriptions so that they are more applicable to the actual job that people will be doing, with some specifications, but certainly cannot detail every single thing that a person is going to be required to do in the district. It is the responsibility of multiple staff members, including all of the principals at each school, to be able to address the numerous arrests that occur. And it does not reside in one person's sole responsibility. Accounting for that data and actually resides in the School Research and Accountability Office, and in conjunction with other positions that we have, including this new one that we have written, but also in collaboration with the assistant superintendents and the director of college and career readiness and the director of pupil services. I also want to add that we've added another position to our staff to replace the school safety coordinator, and that person is going to be very much an integral part. He's a former police officer, he's a retired police officer, and will play an integral part in the safety of our school system. Dan Barry will be joining us on April 22nd. And so I see the duties and responsibilities of multiple staff members to not only make certain that that data is reported accurately and correctly, but that systemically we put in practices to reduce and if not eliminate the numerous arrests that we have had 2 years back, and we've significantly reduced now, but we have a lot of work to do because right now we're not in full session with 100% of the student body within the population. All of the duties and responsibilities that every one of the commissioners mentioned are so important to the work that we have to do collectively in this district. Yet it does not reside in one sole position. So the data you will continue to receive, it will be accurate. We have a partnership with the police department. You know, we have that in an MOU. We have that in the school improvement plans. We have it in Commissioners Network. We have it in every single facet of the work that we're doing, including how we're being very strategic about funding and spending the $41 million that we have just gathered. So I can't include every single duty for every job description, but I will tell you that all of those things that you mentioned are so vitally important, but they don't reside only in one position. And it is not the responsibility of just one person to do that. One of the many reasons why this position is elevated to a director is because the kind of work that we need requires someone to be able to organize, to pull people together, to perform work that is critically important to the board's strategic plan, as well as your core values, as well as what we all believe in for all children in all of our 32, soon to be 33 schools. Additionally, in order to recruit people to come and work and have the expertise to deliver on the work that we need, we have to be able to cast our net in such a way that we are an attractive district for people to come and want to work, play, and live here, and be an engaging part of the community for a long haul, not just for a short period of time. And so the intentionality of being able to assure that our students are going to be seeing themselves in the text that they read doesn't only reside in the curriculum department. It resides with all of us actually, but sometimes, especially through a director of diversity and inclusion, there may be conversations with students that students will have with this person. So certainly they have it with me. To be able to assure that they see themselves in all parts of the community. And that's not only in identifying with African American and Puerto Rican studies, which is critically important to what we're going to be doing, but it is far more than that, that all students see themselves. And there has been a void for a very long time in the literature and the opportunities to respond to our LGBTQ community. And I think that students have certainly voiced it to me and certainly want to see, and not only students, but students and staff really need to know that we value all and that all means all. So I see this position encompassing a lot that you may not see bulleted points specific to that, because it's not only that person's job, it resides with all of us. But certainly there are some key points that this person, whenever we find someone to fill this position, it's going to be a challenge to get. It has to be an attractive position. It has to be, a position that we value because we want to sustain it within our district. And it is everyone's job to be able to work on all of those very important indicators that you mentioned in your comments this evening. There was not a specific comment that was made, nor is there going to be a reference specifically to any specific committee that might have started this year and maybe ongoing, but there may be other committees. But it is expectation that I have for all of our directors, as well as all of the people who are on this commissioners meeting, that we all become engaged in the community. So I don't only expect the director of diversity and inclusion to attend meetings. I expect all of us to. I expect our director of college and career readiness to be there. I expect our assistant superintendents to be there. I expect our principals to be there. I expect myself to be there. And I think that I will lead by example for all of our staff to be able to do that. When it becomes critically important to have a conversation, if someone perhaps is not doing that, then I will certainly address it on an individual basis, because I think my job description is longer than anybody else's. But I want to make sure that I help develop the staff to do the work that you've hired me to do, and to be able to engage everyone to assume the responsibility that all means all, and that we're all a part of restorative justice, restorative practices, inclusion, diversity, and all means all. And we have a lot of diversity in Waterbury, and it resides a lot deeper than only race or gender.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Karen, are you waving your hand?
Yes, I am. And I'm kind of holding my head here because Dr. Ruffin, I want to support this directorship, but I'm having trouble justifying it now with that description. I'm with you that everybody should have a piece of the pie, in terms of inclusion and equity. But now I'm stuck because I'm saying, okay, well, everyone's included in on, student arrest and reporting that, everyone's included in on, diversion. Then why are we making this position a director's position? And why, other than the fact that everybody's doing it? And I'm just looking for something from you to tell me that this position should now be a director. Because I want to support you on this, but that last explanation, I was like, wait a minute, then why are we doing this as a directorship? So help me here.
I think I explained it, but I will try again.
Would you
We
try
need a
again?
director, because the director will lead this work in professional development, That person leads that work in professional development, does a lot of the things that Jackie currently does, and a lot of other things that Jackie does that's not on her current job description, that we simply added it in this job description. We are not adding it, and I did not ask the commissioners to add it because everybody's doing it. I asked the commissioners to add it because I believe that this is a vital position to be able to strategically place diversity and inclusion at a prominent position and a role in Waterbury Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Ruffin. Any other comments or questions? All right. I guess we're going to take a vote. All in favor of passing this approval request, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Abstain? I think the motion carries. The ayes have it. Thank you very much, everyone. Our next agenda item is item 13, Superintendent's notification to the board. Commissioner Sweeney.
I am here. Hold on. I need to scroll. Motion to approve superintendent's notification to the board, items 13.1 through
13.10.
13.10. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Point of order.
Yes?
I think the motion is usually to receive and place on file superintendent's notification to the board.
You're right. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm
And-
tired.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Motion to receive and place on file superintendent's notification to the board, items 13.1 through 13.10.
13.8.
Thank you.
13.8.
Oh,
Yeah.
I got 13.10.
Yeah, no, 13.8 was the last week.
Okay.
All right. Next second.
Thank you. Please signify by saying aye if you're in agreement with this.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Abstain? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very, very much. We don't have any unfinished business of the preceding meeting, do we? Commissioner Van Stun?
I can't resist. It's my last opportunity on this item. And it's probably going to be exactly why the committee chose to take it off the agenda. One of the items on the facilities was a request by Crosby High School to use the gyms in the summertime for some practice. I think I will be making mention of it as a commissioner. The board may or may not want to, and superintendent, I hope you support it. The reason they're asking for these practices, it's a possibility that the CIAC will have college recruiters and like prep school recruiters come and watch these games as they play, and they will be allowed to have their coach. In this case, of course, I talk about Crosby and Coach Augelli, but any of our schools would be in it with their coach, with an opportunity over the summer to get the visibility that was not granted to them the end of last season and all of this season. And I think the city of Waterbury needs to get with the CIAC and make sure this happens. Our athletes have really had a difficult time. Parents haven't been able to watch, except maybe if they pay for the system that, broadcasted, live streaming, what have you. So it's just something I want to bring out, that as a board, we should really be supportive of this. Let our athletes go to these tournaments over the summer, and let them get some of the notoriety or the recognition by the right people to maybe continue their career in college. The second item also is sports related. We're going this year with, because we had small numbers, a co-op team with Wilby and Crosby baseball. But I read in the paper that the few Crosby players that are participating are being asked and are doing it wearing Wilby uniforms. I think that's wrong. They should be out there representing their school. It's baseball. plenty of baseball games have multiple uniforms on the same team. It's not as much a formality as, say, football or some other sports. I think we should take a look at that. It may sound mundane to us, but let me tell you, those Crosby players, they want to wear their Crosby uniform. I'm sure of it. And I think it's something we should look at and give them that opportunity. So to my point, it's the last chance at number 14. So there it is. Goodbye, number 14. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Stone. Nicely put. Any other business from last time, Commissioner Harvey?
We're still under old business, Commissioner Pagano?
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'll wait.
All right. Any other old business that anybody wants to talk about? Seeing none other, let's go on to new business. Commissioner Harvey, is that what you wanted to speak to?
Yes, I don't want to steal Commissioner Van Stone's thunder. So I will go just to talk about, just to kind of mention, I did request that the school facilities or school building committee meet. We are meeting to talk about some changes for the Wendell Cross property or facility, but I did mention it. I couldn't. I was overseeing the meeting, so I really couldn't go into detail. But and I know Will did address it, did answer my question, but that question is still lingering, Will, regarding the use of facilities. And the question is, or the comment is, question and comment is that there seems to be some hesitancy, even when those organizations, actually community organizations, present their COVID guidelines attached to their request, and still they cannot reserve the facility. There's one instance when there was something open at Reed. This was just recently, and the person went to see if they could reserve it, and there was this hesitancy, and I don't blame Sandy, but I think that the committee, building and facilities committee, needs to talk about it. We did have that discussion, as I recall, when we were trying to decide last year what we would do in regards to COVID and how we would handle that, and who we were going to allow to be able to rent facilities, particularly we were talking about Crosby, and be safe in doing it. So now we have the state opening up. I think I heard that the Bethlehem Fair is even open. We're definitely thinking about graduations and doing all that safely. Then what's the holdup here with if our folks present, or these organizations present, a COVID plan, why they can't rent the facility? So I'm just making that comment. I'm hoping that the facilities committee will talk about it, because I think we really need to. We're at a different level now in regards to the virus. We'll know a little bit more about it. So I'm just throwing that out there. So Commissioner Van Stone, this was your request to whether or not we would go back and to in-person meetings, etc. You brought that up as a suggestion, so I will yield the floor to you. An email went out to everyone. President Pagano wanted us to talk about it, and I think it's better if we're transparent about it, so that our communities can hear what we think about it. So I will yield to you, Commissioner Van Stone.
Commissioner Van Stone, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. I really wasn't going to speak on this issue tonight. My point was I just thought maybe we can consider this. That's why I sent the comment to you, Mr. President, and I know some other commissioners chimed in as well, a little bit both ways, which I expected. But yeah, I just think it's a point of interest that we should take a look at, see if we could set it up, even if it's partially who wants to go in person goes. My thought was to use the automatic chamber. I think it'd be a little easier to control, our distance, et cetera. It has the facilities to televise it. And it was just a thought. It was by no means any sort of demand by any means. So I just brought it up saying maybe it's time to at least think about it. We do ask the teachers and children to go in, but that was just something I was thinking about. Thank you.
Thought. We're going to have to cross it at some point. Right now, we are still under Executive Order 7B, which means we can't coagulate together. I don't know what the maximum number of people are. I thought I read somewhere 20 in a meeting. Anybody have anything like that? But with Lamont's executive order, we're not supposed to be having public in-person open meetings until that executive order is rescinded. I don't think anybody downtown is doing a meeting in person yet. Rocco, I see your head shaking no, so I'm assuming you're agreeing with that.
Yes, as far as I know, like the Board of Aldermen, they're still Zoom. I know that they're, correct me if I'm wrong, the superintendent, I mean, even there's no in-person meetings within the department. I'm not sure about over at City Hall, but I don't think there's any meetings for in-person meetings. I know there's a lot of Zoom meetings, but like you say, we have to, it's something to think about, but if we're under that executive order, I don't think we could do anything at this point.
Well, I think the executive order is, it could be rescinded tomorrow, or it could be rescinded 2 months from now based upon where the numbers are going. And the numbers are all over the place. Does someone have a comment?
Yes, they are.
Is that you, Commissioner Juanita Hernandez, as I see you laughing? So comments, thoughts? Commissioner Harvey, are you speaking?
Yeah, I was just waiting. The reason why I brought this up is I think it's good that we are transparent, because this did come up, a couple of meetings previous. There were comments from some of our speakers as to whether or not we would go back, to in-person meetings since the schools would be open. With the comment, why is it that we can't go to back to in-person meetings? The aldermen are not meeting. They are meeting, but they are meeting via Zoom. So Commissioner Van Stone brought the question up. It was via an email, and I felt that it would be better if we talk about it. Not saying that we should go for it or against it, but that we at least have that discussion. So that's my purpose for bringing it up.
Well, I thank you for bringing it up, and I also thank Commissioner Van Stone for circulating the thought. I guess we have to wait for the starting gate to be flagged accordingly, like at Churchill Downs, as to when the executive order allows us to facilitate getting back in person. So I guess stand by. We'll be talking about this at some point in the not too distant future. And I thank you for starting the conversation. There'll be a chapter 2, and I can tell Commissioner Hernandez looks like she's ready to call it a night, and she's giggling. So we're not having executive session. There's no more other new business.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you just made my day. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful weekend.
Right.
And Dr. Ruffin, have a fantastic vacation.
Thank you. Happy spring break to our students and staff and everybody else. And thank you. And I will turn off my phone next week.
Girl. We'll bug Darren as much as we can.
You enjoy, Doc.
He loves the torture. Thank you.